So we're hoping to wrap up lecture 13 here in about 2 more videos maybe. And I got some social stuff. Anyway, well, you'll know when we get there. So I left you with the invasion of Okinawa. I told you it was a very brutal fight, that the kamikaze were wreaking havoc upon the U.S. Navy fleet working off of Okinawa. And I said because of the casualties in the last 2 battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa, there's a lot of concern about what could happen when we go into invade Japan itself to try to end the war. And I told you that, we might be looking for other ways to possibly end the war. And so we're going to talk about, for one, the way they ended up doing it. Okay? All right. So what we're going to talk about here is a top secret government program. It's codenamed Manhattan. It's usually called the Manhattan Project, although I don't think they called it that at the time. And its cover story was the Manhattan Engineering District, but everyone always just says the Manhattan Project. This is a big deal. Let me get my trusty pen here. So let me give you some background material real quick. One of the things the Germans were really good at was physics. A lot of the really top-notch physicists were German, just something they had had a tradition of doing. Fortunately, well, the most famous one, of course, is Albert Einstein. Okay, German physicist. He had emigrated to the United States. All right. Fortunately for us, a lot of the really brilliant German physics people were Jewish, and a lot of them decided to get the heck out of Nazi Germany. Okay, so some of these folks had come to the United States, including, like I said, Albert Einstein. Now, Albert Einstein actually has basically nothing to do with the Manhattan Project except for the very, very beginning. Okay, so some of these former German physicists, and that's a mouthful, were concerned that the Germans might try to develop an atomic bomb. Okay? And so some of these men were concerned enough about it that they thought they needed to approach President Roosevelt with their concerns. Now, President Roosevelt is a busy guy. There's a lot of people want to talk to him. He gets a lot of mail. He actually write a letter to President Roosevelt. Are you even sure it'll get to him? So what these fellows do is they go approach Albert Einstein, who's the most famous, the most famous scientist in the world. They explain their concerns. Einstein, understands where they're coming from. He, thinks they have a legitimate fear. And so they write a letter to the president saying, they think that the United States might want to start doing some kind of nuclear research. Now, I told you, Roosevelt gets a lot of mail. If he gets a piece of mail from Albert Einstein, is it going to end up on his desk? Sure. Okay, this is basically Einstein's big contribution to the making of the atomic bomb. It was just getting the attention of Roosevelt. Okay, it wasn't necessarily his idea, but he signed on board with the letter. Okay, this is all like before Pearl Harbor, if I recall correctly. It's been a while since I've read that big, thick book. And so Barry's concerned that Hitler could try to build an atomic bomb, a nuclear weapon, and so we pour enormous sums of money into this very, very, very top secret project. Okay, usually actually referred to as the Manhattan Project. Okay, and this thing is scattered all over the country. I have a map here of some of the various locations that are involved in this. Okay, the key one. This is where most of the actual research is being done. Is at Los Alamos, New Mexico. Okay, but there's bits and pieces of this thing scattered around the country, wherever proper facilities are and that sort of thing. Okay, all right. For instance, well, I think this might be the next slide. One key facility is Oak Ridge, which is in Tennessee. It's right here. All right. So if they're doing the actual design work for the bomb and everything out at Los Alamos, what they're doing at Oak Ridge, here we go, here's Oak Ridge, is they're purifying the uranium they would need to build an atomic bomb. Now there's two types of uranium. There's uranium-238 and there's uranium-235. Okay, and we need one of them to make the bomb. I forget which, but it'll be on the slide coming up here in a minute. So you have to separate the uranium. Now the problem is it's really hard to separate uranium from, uranium. Okay, takes various techniques. Now there's 3 proposed techniques for doing this. One involves a centrifuge. One involves something else. It's been a while since I actually took a class. Believe it or not, I took an entire class in the building of atomic bombs, but it was 20 years ago. Okay? So they have 3 different techniques that could work for separating the bomb-making uranium from the more mundane uranium. And in a peacetime type program where money is tight and you weren't sure which one would be most promising, you would probably build a small facility to do each type of enrichment. Okay, and then figure out which one worked better, and then build an entire factory to do that. But this is a wartime crash program. They're terribly worried about what the Germans could be up to, and so they basically build 3 big plants to separate the uranium, okay? And then figure out which one would work best. Okay? In the end, they ended up piggybacking the technique. They would run the uranium through one plant in one process, which would clean it up some. And then they would run that through another plant, which used a different process to clean it up more. And by this method, they were able to start getting enough uranium to build an atomic bomb at some point. Now, why Oak Ridge, Tennessee? Why don't you do this out at Los Alamos where the research is being done? Well, one reason is this facility is going to require a lot of electricity. Guess what they have plenty of in Tennessee? Electricity, because of the Tennessee Valley Authority. Remember from the New Deal? So Oak Ridge is separating the uranium. Okay? Now another facility up in Washington was working on plutonium. We'll get to that here in a minute. Here we go. Here's Einstein in the photo. I think the other fellow with him is probably Robert Oppenheimer. Robert Oppenheimer actually headed the scientist out at Los Alamos. Oppenheimer, let's see, it's Oppenheimer, perhaps? Oppenheimer. Okay. What they're doing here, what they're going to do, is pursue parallel development. Okay, because once again, price is no object. No one is excited about the idea of Adolf Hitler having an atomic bomb, and we don't. So we're going to pursue different roads. Okay. So we actually start working on 2 different bombs, 2 different bomb designs. Okay. One is a uranium-fueled device. Okay. This bomb eventually becomes known as the Little Boy. Little Boy. Okay. It's a very simple device in some ways. It's a gun-type assembly method, it says here. Okay. Basically, so uranium you need, it says here in the little slot, uranium-235. So you have one chunk of uranium-235 here, one chunk of uranium-235 here. This chunk is down on this end of a bomb. There's an explosive device. It fires the uranium projectile into the uranium target and brings them together, thus triggering a nuclear explosion. Okay. That's one design they're working on. Okay. Now, I told you uranium's kind of hard to separate because it's mixed in with uranium, so they're also working on a plutonium design. Okay? Now, plutonium does not exist in nature. You get plutonium by running a nuclear reactor. Okay? So we had one of those going too. Okay? And a byproduct of a nuclear reactor is the plutonium. Now, they toyed with the idea of trying to make a gun-type plutonium bomb, kind of like the little boy, but for various reasons that I won't bore you with, it wouldn't work. Okay, so they came up with the idea of an implosion device, which is the bottom bomb there. Okay, where you would have a sphere of plutonium, like a ball, and then you would use chemical explosives to crush the ball. Okay, thus triggering a nuclear reaction. Okay. This device was more complicated to build because you had to develop an explosive shell that would fire off and fire towards the center, so using a shape charge. So there's a lot of work involved in this one. So we're pursuing these two designs because, hopefully with two designs we can make one of them work. Okay. So this is going on out, like I said, at Los Alamos. Okay. Well, in early, mid 1945, they have the plutonium bomb far enough along that they think they can do a test of it. Okay, so they build a prototype. Okay, now it doesn't look like a bomb. It's got all kinds of wires going in it and stuff. And they hang it from a tower out near Alamogordo, New Mexico. And they have cameras and sensing equipment and all kinds of things to monitor this thing. There's a picture of it. Okay, so this would not have been deliverable from an airplane in its current state. Okay. But they're going to see if they can set this thing off and see if it'll work. Okay. So on July 16th, 1945, they set it off. And it works. Okay. Legend is that some of the scientists had a side bet going on whether the bomb might set the atmosphere on fire and burn all the oxygen away from the planet. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But supposedly someone, I'll bet you $5 this thing ends the world. Okay. So they set this thing off, and it does work. There's a cover story that they released to the press that an ammunition depot has blown up. You get the mushroom cloud. The scientists have done their job. And Oppenheimer was watching. He quoted the Hindu scripture paraphrase. Originally would be in Hindu, but it loosely translates to, "I have become death, destroyer of worlds." And so they're going to notify the authorities in Washington that the test has worked. And there's another picture here of a nuclear bomb going off. All right. So we'll jump back into the Lecture 13 PowerPoint and pick up with what happens next.